Welcome to The Grand Balance, a weekly podcast hosted by two working grandmas navigating the beautiful chaos of work and family. Today is our 10th episode, and we want to say how much we appreciate all of the support we've received from our listeners during the launch of our podcast. Your comments, consensus, or even differing opinions have been very valued, and we've learned a lot. And on today's episode, we're going to share some updates, new tips, and lessons learned related to our initial episodes. Sharon, starting with episode 1, which was on pregnancy loss, and birth, anything new that comes to mind to share with our listeners?
Back to episode 1, I think a couple things that stand out in my mind are just the continual news about the summer swim safety. I think that's something that was a great PSA, and I just think it's a good reminder for everyone to stay vigilant on that because there's definitely some heartbreaking news over the summer in that area. And hopefully if we can prevent one family from having to go through that heartbreak, it's definitely worth it.
What I really appreciated is we have pediatric nurse in our Pilates class, and that was the first thing she said. Hey, I listened and good for you. Like we try to give that message to so many people, and I'm so glad you guys focused on that. So that made me feel better.
Yeah, I like that. The other feedback I got from episode 1 was some of the newer grandmas that out and about that I run into or we receive feedback by email have just appreciated the tips as far as different things that we can do to assist with the pregnancy. I think a lot of that was well received, and I think hopefully it was valuable to a lot of people out there that are new grandmas.
One of the things that we had talked about in that first episode was pregnancy loss. And you may recall, but I did share my personal experience that my daughter went through. And I remember during that episode asking myself, I don't know if I did the right thing. I'm not sure how she feels. So I went ahead and asked her, did I do the right thing? Could I have done something differently? And she said, every person is different, but what I really needed from you was more in-person comfort. Like, I know you'd reach out and say, hey, how are you doing? Do you need anything? And she knew that I was feeling like I didn't want to impose on her and her husband, but she really wanted that. And so her advice to any other grandma out there is just ask your daughter what she needs. Because if I would have said, what do you need from me right now? She would have said, I need you to come over.
And what a good reminder just to make the question known, because a lot of times I think people assume that they're doing something helpful or the right thing. And it's so easy just to say, hey, what can I do to help you through this?
Yeah. And they don't want to ask, but we need to be asking them. We need to be asking the daughters and the sons. So.
Yeah, that's a great reminder. Episode 2, we talked about helping with a newborn coming home, if you remember.
Yes, I do remember. It was Grandma to the Rescue, experiences and tips for supporting new parents.
Yes. Another one, we got tons of positive feedback from newer grandparents, giving them ideas that they probably hadn't thought of. So that was very heartwarming to hear that we did help some new grandmas out there.
Yeah. And the feedback that I got was, wait a minute, your daughter only started looking for daycare after she was home for a few months. And I made a mistake. I found out that she started looking when she was 6 months pregnant, and they still are on at least another year of a wait list. So maybe when my grandson is 2, they'll get into their daycare. So what I've heard from many, many people is start almost as soon as you're pregnant. You can always change your mind later, but get on those wait lists.
Yeah, that's a good tip because I've heard the same. Things are just so backed up and crowded. And once you need it, it's too late.
Right.
So that's a great tip. Episode 3 was one of my favorites. It was about friendships and how important they are in our lives of being a grandma. And something that came to mind that I don't know if we talked a lot about, but many of my closest friends are long distance across the country that somehow during life we cross paths, whether it be in college or after or raising kids, and people move. And I think that reminded me that it's so important to reach out and proactively keep those friendships alive even, it's so easy to do now with texting, group chats. And I thought, I think that's the most successful way, is just to feel like you're still part of each other's lives. And I think you have to do that with some regularity. So you do know the comings and goings of things that are going on. So you can be there to support and just laugh about some of the craziness about life and be there.
It's funny because during that episode, I admitted that I got off social media. Now I'm back on. And that night, after we recorded the episode, I went on and I went and looked, and I saw that my best friend from elementary, high school, she doesn't live afar. I mean, she lives in San Diego, but completely different side of town. And so we don't stay in touch. But her daughter was having a baby the very next day. She was scheduled.
Wow.
So, it did help me in a little way to try to be more proactive, like you're talking about, because boy, did I feel like crap that I didn't even know she was having a baby.
But nice that you found out just in time.
That's right.
So I think that was the biggest takeaway. A fun episode for sure. And just a reminder to ourselves that we do need self-help, self-care.
And I'll admit, I'm giving advice, or actually you're giving the friendship advice, and I was trying to do better. I don't know if I'm doing that great. I need to go back to it and listen, because I am going to Pink next week with a friend. So that's going to be fun.
Oh, fun. Yes,
Yeah.
I think I'm going to, and I'm very excited about it.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't think I've done as much as we talked about on making sure that I'm doing better with getting together with friends and staying in touch. So
it's never too late.
That's my big fail right now. So I got to get better at that.
A continuation of taking care of ourselves as grandmas was episode 4, where we talked about healthy habits.
That was probably my favorite because, we keep talking about getting stronger, and I actually want to give a shout out. So this is an inspirational grandma story, an additional one for this episode that I was just reading. And this inspirational grandma, her name is Nora Langdon. She's 81 years old. And in her professional life, she was a realtor, and she was struggling to walk up the stairs, and she decided to do something about it. What she decided to do was start weightlifting. So as part of this article that I was reading about this amazing grandma, it said, without exercising, muscles start disappearing when you're 30. And by the time you're in your 60s, half the muscle mass would be gone.
Wow.
So if you can get it back, try to get it back. And that's what Nora did. Now she is the world record-breaking professional power lifter. Get this. Her squat record is 413 pounds.
Oh, my goodness.
And I can tell you, as you know, I keep saying I have a new gym. I'm just so excited about it. That's why I mention it. I do 45 to 60 pounds right now. She does 10 times more weight.
That's just a staggering number in my mind. But
her bench press record is 203 pounds. I think I can get to 40. And her deadlift record is 425 pounds. I don't even do deadlifts yet. So it's crazy. And this is like, she's 81 years old. So this is amazing to me. Her quote was, do something. Keep that body moving until the Lord calls you home. So I thought that was really neat. And she's a very inspirational grandma.
Yeah, that's great advice. On that same note, I'd like to introduce my fabulous find because it goes along perfectly with that. Are you ready? Okay, as we've been talking about staying fit, weightlifting, and one of the most important things I keep reading and hearing about is getting enough protein. And we really need to lead with protein in our diets. And one of the things that's really helped both myself and my daughter getting more protein is a Ninja Creamy. I don't know if you've heard of that. Have you heard of those?
A Ninja Creamy?
Yes.
Like a ninja, Power Ranger ninja?
Like the Ninja appliances.
Okay, so a Ninja, got it, creamy.
Yes. So
okay.
You make a base, and you can use almond milk, you can use low-fat milk, skim milk, regular milk, any type of milk base that you want to. And you choose your flavor protein powder, and you just need a little bit of instant pudding to bind it. And you can add fresh fruit. You can make like a Dole Whip. And then with that, you would use maybe like a fruity protein powder or unflavored protein powder. But it's a way to have protein, and it's delicious, like truly as good as froyo, almost as good as ice cream.
So it's like a frozen yogurt, not like a regular smoothie?
Well, you can make smoothies with this, but I generally just make the ice creams.
The creamy. Okay. That's neat.
Yeah. I mean, both my daughter and my son-in-law are requesting them all the time. So with theirs, I'll do like a little bit of Oreo thin mix-ins to jazz it up a little bit. Mine, I try to stay away from that and just use fresh fruit. But they are truly, truly delicious. And with all the extra protein, you can get an extra 40, 50 grams of protein in there.
Yeah, that's really great.
So those are available. Amazon, Walmart has specials, Costco has specials on it regularly, but highly recommend. I know a lot of people talk about it. You can find recipes all over the internet, but I will vouch for them and say it is a delicious treat at night, especially when you're trying to increase your protein, because they say, I mean, generally people are supposed to have as many grams of protein as their ideal weight.
Oh my gosh, that's interesting.
That's a lot of protein.
Seems like it.
Yeah. So it's hard to get that much in.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an easy way and tasty as well. So let's go back to our recap. Episode 5
was about generations apart.
Right. And all the changes that have come with the times.
The big one for me was the food and nutrition. I have been more concerned about feeding the baby whole foods, but I still turn to convenience sometimes. And I know we were talking about how the newer generation is more into the whole foods, the natural. We were more into convenience. And in fact, just today, I took the baby, who's 11 months old today, to the bay to walk the bay. And then we visited the playground, and I packed his formula for his bottle, his afternoon bottle. And then I put in a go-go squeeze. And on the package, the go-go squeeze says it's all natural fruit, 100%. And then I started looking up the ingredients, and it is still like good, but it was funny. My daughter said, "Oh, yeah, it's okay, Mom. If it's convenient for you, it's okay." And I just felt so guilty. She didn't make a big deal of it. She was just like, if that's convenient for you, it's okay. But I felt so guilty, like, shoot, I should have done more whole foods. I should have grabbed a banana or something instead of the go-go squeeze. So I'm still not practicing some of the recommendations we had, but I need to.
And I keep listening to all the tips because our little granddaughter's just starting on mashed avocado, frozen banana pops, that sort of thing, homemade. So she just ate Greek yogurt. So we're at the very beginning of the stages. So I am definitely listening to your tips. Please send in any tips people have that have been successful.
Yeah. And it's the, what am I packing for the day kind of thing. So I have to really think through that a little more. But when I'm watching the baby, I kind of have time. I need to do better. All right. Anything else on episode 5? That was a big one, the generations apart and how we all do things so differently.
I think the big takeaway for me was we all recognize that things have changed, but the key, I think, is to follow our children's lead. You made a good point in that episode. Our kids have adjusted to the change. And I think we have a harder time because things are done so differently. And I think the best thing we can do is just listen to what their advice is and do the things that they've researched and are comfortable with, because the change is much more foreign to us than to them. They grew up with so much change.
Right. And they said they're raising the kids for this time period, not 25, 30 years ago. So
right.
Makes sense. What was interesting, so episode 6 was technology impact on our grandkids. I probably personally, and even the comments that we received the most feedback on this one. This really resonated with so many people. And what was interesting, so 2 things that I heard that I wanted to bring up. One is how many, many people had said that they need to do a better job of self-regulating how much they're using their technology in front of their kids, because they realize after we played the episode that it is creating the kids to either act out or they're mimicking their parents. And so it's something that they need to do a better job of. So a lot of folks said, wow, after hearing that, I'm going to self-regulate more. And I'm really thinking about it.
And just being aware, maybe.
Right. Like it brought attention to it. And one tip, and I thought this was a great one, is someone said, think of it as a cigarette. Think of your device as a cigarette.
I have no idea where this is going.
Yeah. You don't want secondhand smoke around your baby, right? So every time you reach for your phone, think of it as lighting up right in front of your baby. And so you wouldn't do that, well, unless you're a smoker. But for those that are not smokers, you wouldn't reach for a cigarette and just start doing it right in front of your baby because you don't want them to get secondhand smoke. So if you, in your mind, think of, okay, I'm going to think of it as a cigarette, then maybe you won't reach for it as often. And maybe you won't do it around your baby as often.
Such a great tip because I think so much of it is just habit. And I heard a friend say that she started pretending like she didn't have a phone on the weekends. And I thought it was such an interesting concept because it would be so difficult at first, but so freeing at the same time, not to have to look for your phone, grab it, see who's trying to reach you, answer emails, etc. If you just knew you were going to basically unplug other than convenience text to say, where are you? From Friday to Sunday, I think that was such an awesome idea.
Right.
And I think it'll probably become more and more popular as people start trying to become more aware of their dependence on technology.
And I listen to several news podcasts in the morning. So CNN, NPR, and New York Times. And every one of them in the last 2 days has been talking about getting cell phones out of schools and how the different schools are trying to do it and what the plans are and who's fighting it, who's not, what they're doing about it. So it is just a big deal right now. And it is causing just controversy and concern across the nation.
After that episode, I did talk to my daughter because she is in an education about the whole phone situation. And she believes kids should have their phones, but not be able to use them during the school day, which it seems most of the school districts are leaning to that. We had discussed how are they going to possibly implement it. And I've been pretty amazed at the solutions different school districts are proposing. And it seems like such a workable solution now. It also seems that our initial concern that parents were fighting it, a lot of what I've seen recently is that there is a lot of support from parents.
Yeah, on the episodes or the podcasts that I was listening to today, about 50% of parents were still not completely supportive. They still want the ability to be able to reach their kids. And so it is still, a hot topic. It's very controversial, like I said. But one of the examples that they gave on the benefits of not having the cell phone, there was this one school, I think it was in Texas, and the kids would text each other about, hey, I'm going to fight this person today at this time. There was a lot of violence going on in this school. And what they found was when the kids wanted to go to the bathroom, they took the phones away. So they couldn't text to say, hey, I'm going to be doing this, right? And the kids that went to the bathroom, they had to check their phones in so that nobody could take video. Because what they were doing was they were taking video of these fights to post on social media to get attention. So when they implemented this rule, they said the number of fights went down significantly. And it broke my heart to hear this story that's going on, but it was such a amazing benefit of the phone restrictions.
And I feel hopeful that they are finding solutions to this. One of the things I saw that I hadn't really considered was many of the kids wear an AirPod in an ear during class. And so,
like under their hair, they can hide it.
So they're listening to something other than the instruction. The teacher is not getting through to the kid. The kid's not getting the instruction. And I thought, I cannot imagine being a teacher faced with that. And that would be another solution without phones, because if you don't have your phone, your AirPod's not going to be working. But there's something I hadn't considered, that seems to be another big problem in high schools.
Yeah.
So I am hopeful, though. I do believe they will find solutions to this and manage it and really find an effective way to get back to learning.
Well, they're trying really hard from what I've been listening to. It's definitely a topic in every district.
Yeah, I agree. The only other takeaway I had from episode 6 on the technology was we didn't really discuss all the positive aspects, and there are so many we don't necessarily need to go into them, but we do need to remind ourselves as we evolve as a society, technology is a huge part of it.
Well, what would be some of those? I think it's worth mentioning.
Just the knowledge we have at our fingertips. Think about us going to the library to look up an encyclopedia and go through the card catalog, and now any type of information is at your fingertips. Communication is very readily available.
What I do love about it is you can make friends with people from around the world. I know that especially if you go on a trip somewhere, you can keep those friends and they can become lifelong friends that you've met in other countries if you're traveling afar and stuff like that. And that's for, teenagers as well as young adults.
Yeah, exactly. It can help with friendships. Also, when you're speaking of travel, there's so many different ways to research ahead of time what you want to see, make the plans on what you're going, where you're going, what you can do.
Yeah, I used to buy a book at the bookstore about the country I was. Yes, that was it exactly.
I remember buying those books as well. And now there's just unlimited amount of information at every destination.
Yeah, and you can do things so much more quickly. The productivity is increased. And I know you do this a lot. You use your voice recognition on your phone. I never did it, but I know my son, who a few years back was in college, and he would dictate his essay because he wasn't a fast typist. So that gave him the opportunity to get his papers out more quickly than if he had to sit down and try to type.
Well, it's also a nice way to remember things too. If you just have a thought that you need to do for work or whatever in life, you can just quickly talk to text and save it in notes, and it's like a reminder type of thing.
Yeah, no, you do a really good job at that. I know you're in your car a lot, so you need to be hands-free.
It definitely helps. Our next episode 7 was our first interview with Laura Young Shahada, and we got so much positive feedback on that one.
We sure did. And a lot of people have asked, what are the love languages? So I'm going to put it on the website in the episode notes.
Oh, great.
The book about all the different love languages, because she really focused on that. And a lot of people are asking, well, what does that mean? And how do I know what my love language is or what other people's love language is?
And it's funny, I've heard of it, but I've never read the official definitions.
There's a book.
Yeah, I've heard there was a book, but I have not referred to it. But I would be very interested to see the different options of love languages.
I think I have it in my side drawer, by my bed. So I'll have to look for it, but I will put it up on the website.
All right. Very cool. Yeah. And she's such a gifted speaker.
She is. And the biggest thing I think we've learned out of all of the episodes that came up on this one, or it was reinforced on this one, was practicing how to zip it.
Shout out to Kim Peterson.
Yep. I think she mentioned it and then it came back again, was really emphasized on episode 7.
Actually initially told me that tip. So she's the one that started it way back before I was even a grandma. And she was a grandma first. And that was her only advice to me. So
I think it's really good advice.
She needs credit for that for sure.
All right. Then we moved into episode 8. This is the kids' favorite things to do with their grandma. And we had so many great memories to share.
Another fun episode. What makes a grandma great? It was fun to talk about that. I think the big takeaway we had from episode 8 was something that's been a reoccurring theme, quality time.
Yep.
So
one of the love languages.
Right. You can make memories that last generations by doing special things, giving your time, making unique experiences, so many different memories people had. And it was really fun to read all of them. And we thank everyone that did write in, posted on our social media. It was a lot of fun for us to read all of the great memories people had with their grandmas. Episode 9, we brought in the different parenting styles that are common today. And it was interesting to kind of see how everything was laid out. And another good reminder that we just need to follow our children's lead, I believe, and practice our zip-it-ability.
That's right. And I did, if you all listened, you'll know that I was very, very confused, but now I get it. I follow the authoritative parenting style. And I'm going to keep saying that word, authoritative.
It's a mouthful for sure.
Yeah, but it's the balance, which I love. It's somewhat teach them discipline and consequences, but let them have a voice, make sure they understand why things are happening, and don't just be authoritarian, which is saying no.
Right.
And just because I said so.
Another update to my fabulous find in that episode, the Unbuckle Me, the little plastic doodad that helps you unbuckle the seat. I've seen it marketed all over TikTok recently to help people with long nails. So that's another note. So if your daughter or your caretaker has long nails, it also solves that problem of pushing the button down with long nails. So,
or if a grandma has long nails.
Okay, right. Sorry, I'm excluding us out of that population. I haven't done long nails for a few years, but you're right. There are definitely grandmas out there with long nails. So anyone that has a grandkid in a car seat with long nails can also benefit. It's not just for people like me with sore hands.
That's right. Well, I think the first 9 episodes were amazing, and I'm so blessed to have you as my partner, Sharon. And on our next episode, which will be episode 11, we are going to have another interview, our second interview, and we're going to go a little deeper on what we talked about with episode 4, which was healthy habits for working grandmas. And we'll have a personal trainer, certified nutritionist, all that good stuff that she brings to give us tips at a little more detailed level so we can get started if we haven't already.
I definitely feel so grateful that we have everyone as an audience and we're able to do this. And we look forward to another 10 episodes.
All right. Well, until next time. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for listening. Please like and subscribe to the podcast so we can continue to grow our community. Also follow us on Instagram at Working Grandmas Podcast, on Facebook at The Grand Balance, a Working Grandmas Podcast, and join our LinkedIn group, Working Grandmas. You can also email us at info@workinggrandmas.com or message us through any of our social media platforms.